are. It's a week like any other. What a beautiful day. What a beautiful time. Just wanted to pop on real quick and just kick into the broadcast. It's Drew Lentz, the wireless nerd. Today is April 30th. Oh, there goes the month of April, and this is Waves with Wireless Nerd. We're just going to go ahead and get going here. Let's let the internet settle in for just a second. Let me pop open a couple of chat windows and see if I'm live on all of the things that I should be live on, the things I'm supposed to be live on and whatnot. Take a deep breath, relax, have a good time. Let's talk about what's happened. There's so many good things happening. I just had an amazing conversation. You know, what's so much fun about doing these interviews is I get to talk to people that I know or that I have known or that I've kept up with or that I've been introduced to, but I get to geek out with people that are as equally nerdy as I am. So stay tuned. After the show today, we've got Mr. Payman is going to be on, and he is from iKnow, and we're going to be talking about their product and what they do with signal modeling, not just signal modeling, but coverage modeling and coverage analysis. And they've got a great piece of software that's out there. We learned a little bit about it at WLPC. It's been making its way into the industry. There's been some coverage of it already. And I just found out that they announced that they are going to be at Mobility Field Day. So coming up very soon, real soon now, in May, we've got Mobility Field Day 11, and that's going to be live from, I think we're going to be at the Embassy Suites in Santa Clara. Celona, Arista, Ubiquiti, Juniper, iKnow, Cisco, and Fortinet are all going to be presenting, so I encourage you to tune in. That's May 15th and 16th. It's going to take place both days from about 9 a.m. to about 6 p.m., 4 p.m., depending on your time zone. But make sure you make plans to watch Mobility Field Day. It's going to be a spanking good time. Dev, Drew, Fernay, Jen Huber, Keith Parsons, Kevin Franzen, Mark Houts, Muhammad Ali Muhammad. It's always fun to read his names forwards and backwards. Rocky Gregory, Ron Westfall, Roel Dionisio, and Sam Clements. We will all be there to take your questions and provide feedback to the people that are going to be presenting at Mobility Field Day 11. But one of those is going to be Payman from iKnow. So I will be playing his interview following this week's episode of Waves by Wireless Nerd. So we're back from Wi-Fi Now, and once again, thanks to Klaus and the team, Ina and Klaus and the team over at Wi-Fi Now for having us in beautiful Sarasota, Florida. I'm not going to talk too much about Wi-Fi Now specifically because we've got a special treat coming this week. One of your beloved faces and I are going to get together, and we're going to do a breakdown on what we saw at Wi-Fi Now. So I'm just going to drop that teaser there. You should be hearing from us hopefully tomorrow, because I've got to fly to Nashville this week. I'm going to Nashville. It's going to be so much fun. But Wi-Fi Now was just a great conference. We got to see a lot of people from the industry, got to see some really old faces. Yes, they are old, and I have known them for a while. Mr. Jimmy Connor. It was good to see him, man. People from back in the day. We had a reunion of sorts for people that have been in this industry for like 20, 25 years. Also, and there we are in Sarasota drinking boat drinks. It was really good, though. Lots of good things, lots of good content that was had there. Some key things were talked about. It was great to see some people that were presenters, either from the chipset manufacturers or from people dealing with home networks. So it really spanned from the home network and the commercial networking side. There were a lot of good content. Took a lot of photos, uploaded a lot of really great stuff. Stay tuned. We're going to be doing a full breakdown on Wi-Fi Now, but that is not what I'm going to be talking about today, because we have some news to get into, hot off the presses. And of course, what I like to do is I try and keep this in the categories of what's new, what's now, and what's next. So along those lines, what's new, hot off the presses, SES is going to acquire Intelsat for $3.1 billion. So as I read through this article, Fierce Network is the first one I saw it on. It says the combined entity is going to bring together the growing portfolio of GEO and MEO satellites to basically threaten the LEO constellations like SpaceX and Amazon's new Project Kuiper. The transaction is now expected to close before the second half of 2025. It's going to be cash and debt finance, but Luxembourg-based satellite operator SES says it will buy 100% of Intelsat for $3.1 billion, bringing together two major geostationary Earth orbit satellite operations amid rising competition from the LEO constellations at SpaceX and Starlink and Amazon. It's interesting. That market's heating up. There's lots of good carriers out there doing it, so this one's going to bring those two together. This isn't the first time that these two have attempted to get together, but now it looks like it's close. So the structure of this transaction is much simpler than it was before. talking about the Intel acquisition by SES. So some consolidation happening in that industry, which is okay. Lots of good ones. Waiting to see what's happening with Telestat and the guys up in Canada. I know they're going to do something. They've been talking about doing something for a while. Their project is launched, so let's see when those satellites start to pop up in the air. So that just happened. Also, straight from the desk of the FCC, net neutrality has been reinstated. Now, good for some people. Some carriers were a little hesitant about that. You know, at Wi-Fi Now, the former chairman for the FCC, Mr. Ajit Pai, was there. What a fun dude. I'm just going to put it out there. I know that, elephant in the room is like people hated that guy, but there are also people that love that guy. And it was nice to see that he was just a human and he can sing really well, which I was not expecting. I wasn't expecting him not to sing really well, I guess, but I don't know. He popped up and started singing "Sitting on the Dock of a Bay." There's a video of it on the internet, but Chairman Pai did a great job with that. So he was a little bit of a fan of making sure that net neutrality wasn't where it was. But the FCC voted to approve an order to reclassify broadband internet as telecommunication services under Title II. And a result of that, blocking, throttling, or engaging in paid prioritization will be prohibited. Chairman Jessica Rosenworcel couldn't bring the issue to a vote until a third Democrat joined the panel last year. Remember, they took a while to get a new person on there, but now they had him. They pushed the vote through. It voted 3-2 along party lines, and net neutrality is back. So that's the whole idea that you can't throttle, you can't block, you can't, if you're a carrier, you can't show preference to different groups that are out there. So this is a big win for everyone that was fighting against it, fighting for reclassification, and then fighting for this to happen. There's some pictures, a great article, great write-up by Fierce Network. Fierce Wireless has it up there, some old pictures from when Brendan Carr presented graphics from 2014, reminding everyone of the controversy that erupted when protesters demanded stricter rules to enforce net neutrality. And Chairman Pai got, a lot of heat. There was a lot of stuff he got a lot of heat for. Got a lot of heat for this one. It was pretty bad. So that is in place now. Net neutrality, long live net neutrality. Yay! Unless you're the carrier, then boo. So whichever way you see it from, at least something's happening, which is good. It's good to have a full panel back on the FCC so you can actually move some stuff along. And one of the other things they moved along was fining AT&T, T-Mobile, and Verizon almost $200 million for illegally sharing customer location data. And this goes back to in 2019, there were found U.S. carriers were found selling real-time location information from customer devices to third-party data aggregators, which led to locations and data being sold to private investigators, bounty hunters, law enforcement agencies, credit card companies, and more. So good on the FCC cracking down on that. Our communications providers have access to some of the most sensitive data information about us. These carriers failed to protect the information entrusted to them. Here we're talking about some of the most sensitive data in their possession, real-time location information revealing where they go and who they are, said FCC Chairwoman Jessica Rosenworcel. As we resolve these cases, which were first proposed by last administration, Chairman Pai, the commission remains committed to holding all carriers accountable and making sure they fulfill their obligations to their customers as stewards of the most private data. So good on you. $200 million. Good. And I hope they pay it. And then they can use that to do all kinds of great stuff. Like maybe ACP? Too soon? I don't know. There's still, this is the week of action for ACP. If you look up the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, let's see. They are talking about the week of action. Take action. Get involved. Please don't take my ACP. There's still a chance. There's still a chance that it can be saved. But right now, doesn't really look like it. So it works. There's been some great stories. Some great stories about carriers and people that are putting together plans to help make sure that the people who are using those ACP vouchers can still get connectivity. So good on them. That's what's coming hot off the presses this week, ever since Wi-Fi Now last week. A couple of other things, though. This one's interesting. The COAI, if you don't follow that, I had to look up the acronym. The Cellular Operators Association of India has urged the Indian government to impose a ban on the sale of Wi-Fi 6E routers, which utilize the 6 gigahertz spectrum and these are people, this is Reliance Jio, Airtel, and Vodafone Idea raised concerns over the sale of these routers through various e-commerce platforms, saying that is not authorized spectrum in India yet, and people can buy them, and they can turn it on, and they can broadcast in that 6 gigahertz spectrum illegally. So the crux of the issue lies with the regulatory ambiguity surrounding utilization of a 6 gig spectrum. As for now, the government has not made a policy in India. So they're saying, hey, look, man, people can buy these things and turn them on. This goes back to that conversation about Wi-Fi jammers and all the different devices, what's happening with that, because we're getting close. I know I don't want to mention it because I don't want people to start thinking about flipper ban in the States, man. I love my flipper. Speaking of, if you're in beautiful South Texas, I'm going to be doing a really cool talk on wireless security at our local B-Sides organization is putting on a B-Sides presentation, a day of fun for people that are interested in that type of stuff, hacking and whatnot, and engineering and reverse engineering and lock picking and all that. So if you have a B-Sides in your neck of the woods, please make sure you support them. And if you've got some knowledge to share, please do. I'll be sharing mine May 7th. I believe it's May 17th. I'm going to be sharing that down here in beautiful South Texas, talking about wireless security, like making sure that people understand what the implications of what people can do with wireless are. And I'm not just talking like a flipper. I'm not just talking what you can do with Wi-Fi. One year I did this really cool spectrum painting thing. And if you don't know what spectrum painting is, you can look up a really cool demo online. I think I published all mine to GitHub, so I got to go pull that down and see if I can do it as a quick demo. But essentially, I took a software-defined radio, and if you look at the waterfall display of the spectrum, in order to just blast everything as loud as I could, I thought, what cooler way than to draw a picture on the spectrum, on the spectrograph. So as you're watching the waterfall display, you see this image start to appear, and I drew a big smiley face right in the middle of some unused spectrum at very low power, only loud enough to creep into what I was doing. However, it's the idea that, for people who are trying to break the rules, well, I mean, there really are no rules. So be careful what's happening in the wireless space. There's a lot of moving parts right now, and I'll be talking to Scott or maybe some of the team. I don't know who I'm going to get on the line, but hopefully I'll be talking to the team at AirEye is to secure the airspace. They are the leader in network airspace control and protection. NACP is what they're calling it. So AirEye, so much fun. You've heard me talk about them over and over and over again. And yet I still have a box of their gear sitting here that I haven't turned on. Same for my buddies over at Ybot. I just need to plug it in. Like one of these days, I'm just going to plug it in. But the team at AirEye has some really cool technology. We're going to be doing an interview with them, and we're going to be talking a little bit about what their solution looks like. So from a security perspective, you can never be too secure when it comes to the things that you can't see, like all these beautiful waves around us. So that's going to be interesting. Speaking of waves around us, there's two things here I wanted to talk on. One of them took me down a rabbit hole, so I'm going to talk about that one last. But this one popped up this week. RCR, which if you're not a regular reader of RCR wireless news, I pull a lot of content from there. It's great guys. They always have some fantastic reporting. James Blackman posted this article talking about Cisco and Kajeet combining cellular and Wi-Fi in managed enterprise IoT service. I am interested in this. Obviously, I'm talking about it. I'm a little interested in this. It says managed enterprise IoT provider Kajeet has a deal to integrate its Sentinel platform with Cisco's cellular gateway and mobility services platform. The pair hailed it as, quote, a strategic partnership. They also said in a statement they had only, quote, initiated discussions, but it sounds like it's a done deal, according to James Blackman over at RCR Wireless. The message is the U.S. networking giant will take Kajeet's managed IoT solution to help the delivery, quote-unquote, delivery of its own managed wireless solutions. Man, there's a lot to unpack here because, I mean, this is like to me, it sounds like a beachhead, right? When you turn around and you say, hey, this is, we're starting up this conversation with this company. It's no big deal. It's this company, Kajeet. Hold on. Who is Kajeet? Do you know who Kajeet is? Kageet. On their webpage, it says, bridging the digital divide with IoT connectivity and management solutions. Oh, okay, not too bad. If I remember them, I remember what they did with school buses, putting Wi-Fi on school buses, doing private networks, doing private cellular networks, multi-carrier private cellular networks using eSIM and IoT connectivity. and neutral host. And I'm sitting here going, well, wait a minute. I mean, I'm not saying I don't have any information, by the way, that anyone else doesn't have. And I'm just looking at the pieces of the puzzle laying in front of me going, well, these guys do IoT connectivity and they do, network as a service and they do neutral host. And you've got Meraki who doesn't do those things, but they already have all these contracts and licenses to do monthly service. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, what can happen here? So I'm gonna watch this one. I'm definitely gonna keep my eye on this one, because even if this isn't signal that something's happening for Meraki to enter into this space, this is at least a partnership entering into the space. And if you think back on what Meraki does, they don't have a lot of partnerships like this. There's been some really cool, the Emojitag stuff. There's a lot of really neat things that they've started to do over the course of the last couple of years, but nothing where it's like the brand. There's not a lot of brand mixing there. So to hear this one was kind of interesting. I'm not sure what it means, but Cisco and Kajeet will combine on innovative end-to-end services, they said. And that's in quotes. Their work will focus on joint solutions using the Sentinel platform and the full range of Cisco's mobility services platform, including its IoT control center services. Integration with Cisco's Meraki platform will enable Meraki's single pane of glass experience for both Wi-Fi and cellular devices. Think about that. Think about Meraki's single pane of glass experience for not only my Wi-Fi devices, but also if I have a private cellular network. That would be kind of cool. That's not what it says, but that's what I'm thinking. Ben Weintraub, chief executive at Kajeet, says this partnership transcends individual product and use cases. Of course it does. They have a whole slew of products and use cases. It signifies a shared vision for the future of IoT managed services where cutting-edge hardware and connectivity seamlessly converge to deliver security, scalability, and platform. This is going to be fun to watch. This is that. I'm telling you. I mean, you just sit back and you go, why don't we have one pane of glass for all of the wireless things? And I'm not saying that that's what's happening. I'm just saying that when you get two puzzle pieces that seem to fit together, if I'm physically doing a puzzle, we do puzzles every year around Christmas time at my house. You're sitting down, you have the puzzle, and it's like, man, this one looks like it fits. It looks. Maybe if I turn it this way, it'll fit. Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. But Kajeet is making waves out in the industry. There's a lot that's happening in PCN. There's a lot that's happening in private cellular networks and networks as a service. And Kajeet has this thing buried on their page that they do, that I know that they do, and it just like briefly mentions it. If you go to Kajeet.com, Kageet.com, and you scroll down, left-hand side says education, healthcare, public sector, private wireless networks, communication, transport. Like, oh, okay, let me click on private wireless networks. You're like, oh, that sounds interesting. Let me learn about private wireless networks. And when you click on that, all of a sudden it pops up and it says Kajeet Private Wireless and Neutral Host Networks. This is an area that I am absolutely interested in. Neutral Host Networks, there's a link to learn more about what Kajeet's doing there. Seamless multi-carrier connectivity works with multiple cellular carriers, giving end users a seamless and transparent experience wherever they are in your building or on your campus with robust implementation and operation through a single knock. Ubiquitous coverage. Break free from the constraints of limited coverage. Enjoy seamless connectivity across multiple service providers. Dude, I'm just saying. Do I got to spell it out? Look at when you have an announcement that it's like, hey, Kajeet's working with Cisco and some stuff. It's just, hold on. Like, pull, I don't want to say pull the covers back. I don't know if that's even PC. Whatever the PC term for take a deeper look at what Kajeet is and what they bring to the table. That's exciting. So that's not even the rabbit hole that I went down. That's a rabbit hole that I just went down with 19 of y'all fun people listening on Twitter. I appreciate the listens. As usual, I'll take this time to say thank you to all of my sponsors and everyone that makes this show happen. I'm humbled with the response that I've gotten, especially at Wi-Fi Now. So many people congratulating me on the podcast and the content creation stuff and all that. Lots of people, hey, elephant in the room for me at least, right? Lots of people asking, what am I going to do next? I have opportunities that I'm looking at that I think are fun in the industry, but I really am having a good time doing this. I'm having a good time producing content, and you all are listening, and I do appreciate that, and you're sharing it, and you're continuing to listen, and you're telling your friends about it, which is fantastic, and I'm seeing that on the downloads and the watches, so I really do appreciate it. If you can help me take a run at doing this as something of a, not a full-time career, but at least talking about it and having this be a larger part of what I do. You're encouraging me to do it by listening and by viewing. So I really appreciate it, man. It's a lot of fun. If you want to sponsor, drop me a line. I'm happy to do sponsorship stuff. You know what? I posted on LinkedIn. I said, hey, I've run out of stuff to play with. Somebody shipped me some toys. Man, UPS showed up today, and I've got some stuff coming in. So Infinite Cloud, thanks, man. It's fun to meet you guys out at Wi-Fi Now. I'm going to be looking at your products and seeing what they do and how they work. I've got some really cool stuff from IB Wave coming. There's a lot of really, really neat things that are happening, and people are sharing that with me. So I'm ever appreciative of that. Now, here's where I went down the rabbit hole. HPE introduced their high-capacity Wi-Fi 7 access points. And they say that they're introducing these to handle the IoT and the AI surge. Once again, Mr. James Blackman from RCR Wireless News. I wonder if he has a podcast or something. I got to find out. I haven't even dug that deep into it. But, man, he's got a cool little story here, right? HP has introduced its new Aruba Wi-Fi 7 access points in July. They deliver up to 30% more capacity, blah, 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 Wi-Fi 7, blah, 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 ultra tri-band hardware technology, UTB, ultra tri-band hardware technology, saying that they fully utilize 5 and 6 gig to automatically and continuously eliminate wasteful contention between the bands. UTB filters are enabled, eliminating channel interference on adjacent channels of 5 and 6 gig, said HP. This allows the enterprises to use both bands simultaneously, 5 and 6 gig, apparently doing some active filtering. Would you like to know more? Yes, I would like to know more. This 30% claim says it's the highest on the market when measured against the Wi-Fi 7 standard. Okay, that's great. They can do some Wi-Fi 7 stuff. Fantastic. The new 730 series is an intelligent IoT hub. Oh, okay. Cool. 802.15.4 maybe? I know they had the stuff in the 600 series. All right. You know, I know that there's other vendors that are working some of this, technology into their gear. Let's see, where is HPE going with an intelligent IoT hub, you ask? They have built-in hardware for a range of IoT protocols. Okay, good. Great. Hey, James. Hey, Jimmy Blackman. James Blackman. Fantastic article writing, by the way, and perfect placement of the subscribe to the newsletter. So please visit rcrwireless.com and read this article. It's phenomenal. It includes Bluetooth, dedicated Bluetooth and Zigbee radios for high-density and IoT environments, dual USB ports for IoT devices using proprietary protocols. So if you want to stick something in there, fantastic. Integrated non-permanent external antennas on the 730 series. Integrated non-permanent. I don't know. I have to figure out what that means. For challenging RF frequencies, they provide high security for a rush of new IoT devices, blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah. They've added access policy-based layer 7 controls to go with its clear IoT visibility. They've added this. They've added that. They've also added twice as much SD-RAM and flash memory. Wait, what? Twice as much SD-RAM and flash memory? Oh, application-specific containers. Okay, here we go. This is where I start to get interested. Containers and application containers on the access points. Having the access points act as compute, right? Taking these Wi-Fi 7 APs, throwing some beefy stuff in there, having them run compute to support, it says, to support all of this great AI that people are doing. Interesting. One of the things we heard from at Wi-Fi Now was how they push processing further and further to the edge. So I'm keenly interested to see how HPE Aruba is taking this and what they're doing with those containers on the edge. Very interesting. Very stimulating to the senses. I think it's going to be phenomenal. But that's, again, not the rabbit hole that I went down. This last line really got me. As well, HPE claims improved Wi-Fi positioning to an accuracy of 1 meter or less with support for the IEEE 802.11az standard. Wait a minute. New. I saw new, big, bright, shiny lights. 802.11az? They put this in their radios? Dude, how sweet is this? I love location services. I love locationing, and I love anything that pops up that's new about this. And I'm so bummed because I wish I would have known this. I could have reached out to my new friend at LightPoint at Wi-Fi Now and had this conversation because, and I hope I'm saying your name correctly, Kushabu was there. Kushabu Kalyani was from LightPoint, was at Wi-Fi Now. And there's this great article by Eve Daniel on how Bluetooth 5.1, ultra-wideband, and 802.11az compare to provide accurate location services. And if you read this and you scroll down, basically what they're doing is they're taking fine time measurement, that whole fine time, they're taking first, they look at Bluetooth and how it's the angle of arrival that helps you figure out where a device is. And that's cool, and then they look at ultra wideband and they look at how ultra wideband has a wider band. It's going to give you more accuracy when you're trying to figure out what's going on. And it figures out how much time of flight there is on a packet that goes back and forth to the radio. And then you start to look at fine time measurement, which says, okay, well, the packet left at this time and it arrived, there was a time of arrival on a device, and then it sends that information back in another packet so that the AP knows, oh, well, it left at this time, it showed up at this time, that means it must be this far away. And then you look at 802.11az and how it's stacked on top of that. So not only does it do that fine timing measurement, but it does it using, if I'm correct, it does it using some existing packets in there. So it's not having to add more overhead. It's using something existing to return the information about time of arrival. And then it says, well, dude, yeah, and especially if you're using larger channels, when you start to jump into larger channels at up to 160 megahertz, you can use this, and that's cool. But imagine a 320 megahertz resolution channel and the accuracy that you could get when you're using that channel. So it's using larger channels from Wi-Fi 6 and 6E and 7. It's using MIMO, because now what it's doing is not just sending the fine time measurement back in a single packet on a single radio. It's taking advantage of all of them, so you can get multiple readings in an instant. So all of this is really great because now you're digging down into accuracy that is really, really close. And the use cases for 802.11az and the use cases for it, start with UWB and FTM, where it's like, man, we can get down into the nitty gritty. This is the idea that, and Intel talked about this at Wi-Fi Now, where you walk up to your computer and your computer authenticates you and turns on just by you being in close proximity to it. How does it do that? How does it do that magic, right? Your door locks, your door unlocks, like this door right behind me. It unlocks when I walk up to it based on my watch on my wrist or my device that's in my pocket, without me having to authenticate or do anything else, because it's using that ultra high resolution location services. So then you think about hotel rooms, and you think about security, and you think about secure facilities, and you think about how this is not just going to be an authenticator to things, but how it's going to make devices communicate with each other. Like, when a package gets close to a certain scanner, it goes off and it scans through. I mean, there's so many implications for using super high resolution real-time location services that this is just another addition to it. But the fact that Aruba put this in, HP Aruba put this into their new Wi-Fi 7 APs is really, really cool, in my opinion. I love that they're doing something that nobody else is doing, and they could be doing it, but I haven't heard of anyone else implementing 802.11az into their APs. So if you know of someone that is, please let me know, because I think that that's fascinating. Anyway, so I went down this huge rabbit hole. Look up the article on LightPoint. I'll throw a link on the social media channels about how Bluetooth 5.1 ultra wideband and 802.11az compare. They did just a bang up job. LightPoint did a bang up job on this of writing this article. And then there's another one. There's a couple of articles that are out there. MathWorks has a really great article on it. But learn more about 802.11az and how you can take advantage of it. Very, very cool. All right. I think that's it, man. That's all I got today. Thanks for sticking with me. I love seeing just the little numbers creep up. I do appreciate you jumping in on the feeds and asking questions. It's really fun to hear the feedback from y'all. So if you have any questions, please feel free to post them. I'm trying to see if anybody's posted anything on LinkedIn, but that's okay. I'll be posting this up on all of the standard podcast channels. So if anyone has any feedback, let me know. You can always get me, Drew@drewlentz.com. Hit me on the social medias @WirelessNerd. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go ahead and transition over, and I'm going to drop in the interview with Payman from I know. I know. I always mess up all of the names, but take a look, take a listen. Thanks for listening to Waves with Wireless Nerd this week, and look forward to our Wi-Fi Now breakdown. I just got confirmation. So I'm just going to let you know it's going to be Keith Parsons and I are going to be sharing a screen talking about what we saw at Wi-Fi Now. Should be pretty good. And then right soon after that, you will see all of us at Mobility Field Day. Pay attention. May 15th, 16th, 14th, 15th, 16th. You're going to see us out in Santa Clara. But until then, we'll see you. And now, my little interview with Mr. I Know himself. See ya. Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Drew Lentz, the wireless nerd, and today I have a friend who I was introduced to through another magnificent friend in the industry who's making some epic changes to the way people think about doing design for RF networks. And I know that there's all these tools where people say they're changing the way that they do things, but this one is totally different. It's a little bit unique. I think you'll get a kick out of it. And so I'm going to go ahead and let you introduce yourself, Mr. Payman. You tell everyone who you are, what you're doing, and where you're from.
Hi, everyone. My name is Payman Samadi, CEO and co-founder of Ino.ai. I'm based in New York City. It's been home for past, I would say, 11 years. And before that, I was in Canada. And about our company, we call it an AI assistant network planner. And our aim is to support network engineers, solution architects to design networks efficiently and in a optimal way.
Awesome. And I totally screwed your name up, and I do that every time. I'm so bad because I convince myself that it's said one way and not the other. So just for the record, it's Paymon, right? Like M-O-N, but it's spelled M-A-N. And the name of the company, where did it come from, why, et cetera, et cetera. Tell me, a little bit of background. We had one person that was on, there's a company called Ramen Networks. They're a 4G and 5G as a service. I was like, why did you name this thing Ramen? So tell me, where did the birth of the company, the evolution of it, and what made you want to get started in this space?
Sure. So I started a company at Cornell Tech University in Roosevelt Island, New York. It was an incubator program. It's called Runway. It's a very interesting program. They like deep tech, and they help
Okay.
do commercial deep tech. And
Nice.
that's started. And the idea that I had originally was to optimize the backbone of internet on the optical layer. And
Sweet.
that's how the company started. Did a little bit of customer interview and realized it's not going to work out. And it's, uh, it's not really realistic. But we realized the technology had a prediction optimization side that could be used in the wireless space. And that's how we kind of got into the wireless space. Initially, we were doing spectrum optimization for operators, but now we moved to more enterprise Wi-Fi and private cellular, and that's where we are now.
Wow, man. I don't know if, for the people who are listening, you can't see my face. I'm just in here like, man, wow, super deep, right? Because we've got the other end of the other side of this is we've got the teams that, Ekahau, and we've got Hamina, and we've got, the groups that have been doing it just focused on the Wi-Fi side. How do we make Wi-Fi better? And you're coming from a whole different background. You mentioned optimizing this for the carrier side. What does that mean? What were you all trying to do with the carriers? And how does that benefit the enterprise from a technology perspective or from a use case perspective of the tools that you have?
Yeah, so where we started was that, if you're an operator, Verizon, AT&T, every year you spend billions of dollars adding more capacity to your network,
Hmm.
5G, LTE. And the question you need to answer is where I need to add new cell sites, when I need to do it, that it's giving me the quality I want and it's economically is the right decision.
Yeah.
So that's our initial product that we were doing long-term and short-term prediction an entire United States, Canada, and say, at this time it's the right time to add more cell site in this specific location. It was a very
Wow.
good business, but you had limited number of customers, and as a
Hmm.
startup, you want a business you have more customers. So we kind of pivoted towards enterprise networks and enterprise wireless networks, both for Wi-Fi and private cellular.
Okay, so and that's different, right? That's different than the traditional take of here are the walls. Let me put in an access point and do a propagation assessment to see where the RF is. This is saying where do you need to put the APs and why? When you need to put them there, where you need to put them in order to provide that optimal customer experience. Is that more along the lines of where you went?
The optimal customer experience, and also in terms of how many users you have. So how and the budget is not unlimited. So how you prioritize different locations
Awesome.
based on cases, and that's why the way we built this new product is a bit different from the traditional way because we're more interested in the predictive side of it. That okay, what's the best way to design, and then once we got to the wireless side, that was the same idea that, okay, I have this location, I have a unique characteristics of walls, demand what's the best design for this location, and that's the background of how
Wow.
we did it this way.
That's totally, and again, to me, the epiphany I'm having, right, is like that's a little bit different than that. You're not looking at the structure and saying what signal do I need to cover this. You're looking at it saying there's going to be people using their devices at a certain rate. They're going to be expecting or anticipating 4G or 5G services. They're going to be expecting streaming video, and this is where they're going to be. How do we get in front of that? And then the other stuff is like, oh yeah, of course we can bring in the walls. Of course, I mean that. I mean, and I'm not saying that doesn't sound like the hard part, but in the scenario that you're painting, there's a lot of it's come so far, OpenGL and WebGL and the ability to do, just a simple ray trace model to understand where the signal's going. Now it's kind of like that seems like secondary to what y'all are doing, and the other teams, that's their primary, right? Their primary focus is the pretty maps. Your primary focus is maybe the analytics and the data. Is that fair to say?
Yes, I think we focused on analytics, data, and optimization. So, how we could design in an optimal way, considering all those, considering that's how my array is going to propagate, what are the walls,
Yeah.
and what is the type of demand that we have, and then based on that, where I need to put my access point and what is the configuration of those access points. But we're kind of a little bit trying to expand on top of this optimization, and the idea is that in every step of the design and verification,
Hmm.
there are a lot of data that's generated that you could use it to provide recommendations and also provide automation.
Okay.
So if you're a network engineer, if you're a solution architect, do not do a lot of these manual works that when we talk to them, they say, I don't want to do these. I
Yeah.
just basically have these automated for me. So we're trying to do that. And that starts from the very initial phase that you want to have your rough order of magnitude, how we could automate that process with a good accuracy so you don't need to spend hours and hours before even winning a project to do that. And then once
Yeah.
you project, be able to do a better design. And then once you go to the verification and you receive the data, instead of you being, zooming in on a heat map and trying to see what's good, what's not good, the platform does it for you and tells you where are the differences and where you need to focus on.
That's awesome. And I think that goes into the whole quality of experience, right? Because that's a new term. QoS is dead, long live QoS. Now it's about the experience. What are people getting out of it? And what are they expecting out of that, out of the network or out of the service, no matter where they are? And I think that that's one of those things where a tool like this is helpful because it's no longer just about, is the Wi-Fi working in the location? Oh, my cell signal sucks. It's not working here. Let me flip over to Wi-Fi or vice versa. Now we're getting into this era where people have both on all the time. They don't care how they're connected. They just need to be able to get connected to do whatever it is they're trying to do. Check into a hotel or view a view a basketball game or download a menu or whatever it is. And so capacity planning in this sense along those lines is very helpful. Now, so you mentioned the automated components of it. What does that look like? What is something what is a feature that would be an automated feature? Would it just be saying, "Hey, we need to add capacity in this location," or what would something automated look like with your tool?
Sure. So we have this AI assistant that at every step you could ask the assistant to do it for you. So let's say you're planning an outdoor project and you go and say on Google Maps, you search and you put a boundary and you could ask the AI assistant, find all the clutter data for me for this area
Oh, listen, I don't think people understand what you just said because and I don't mean to demean anyone who has had to deal with that. But just finding the clutter data alone for specific locations, I mean, oh God, it's like I got PTSD when you said that because, a long time ago, I was a business development director at a company called EDX Wireless, and we had a product called Signal Pro that a lot of the carriers used. And one of the biggest things was obtaining clutter data, accurate clutter data from specific locations. Now, of course, you have drones and all this stuff that can grab this data and bring it in and create layer files for it. But just finding clutter data is so important. What's funny is I was talking to the group at Cambium Networks. They have a tool called Link Planner, and I was talking to some of the other providers, some of the other software providers for planning and propagation software. I said, dude, just load in Google Maps and pull in the clutter, and then you've got this and the SRTM data and da da da. And they're like, Yeah, we're right now we're just doing the Wi-Fi stuff, and I was like, dude, but you have all these things. So what you're
Yeah.
saying, sorry, not to go completely off, but the importance of good and accurate and close clutter data is so important, and having the ability to just draw a square and say, "Go find me all the clutter data." God, that's awesome. Okay, now what? Is this using the standard like the SRTM data, or where are you obtaining these? What are your data sources to get this clutter data? Wow, you just threw me. I wasn't expecting you to say that, so you just threw me for a curveball there. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. The reason we realize the importance of clutter data is, especially in a private cellular world, outdoor. Now there are many companies that they build private LT, private 5G, and they do it outdoor. So they want to know how accurate is that design
Yes,
before
of
going.
course. Yeah.
So we use many different sources of the data. Many of them are, publicly open. Some of
Yeah.
them we pay for it, and depending on the location we gather. So it contains of the train data, the elevation of that location,
Mm-hmm.
uh, buildings that are located, and any sort of trees that or greenery that is there.
Yeah.
And we cover the whole world, but depending on where in the world, it might not be as accurate as possible. And also, one thing is, many of these use cases we have realized you don't need a 5 centimeter, 10 centimeter, 15 centimeter
No, well,
resolution.
not for not. I mean, that's the thing, right? It's so God. This wow, wasn't expecting a conversation to go here, but yeah. So I'm glad you mentioned what clutter data is. So the term of the day, LULC, right? Land use and land clutter data, and it's all of the things that are on the bare earth, right? And it's not just the bare earth. It's are there trees there? Are there buildings there? How tight are those buildings? Is it dense? Is it rural? What type of usage is it? Is it agricultural? Is it farmland? Is it people? Is it dense downtown? Is it dense urban? LULC data is super important when you're doing these things because it's not just about the propagation, right, of the signal through these, from a field versus a downtown Tokyo. You know what I mean? It's not just that. It's how many people are there in that field at that time. If it's Coachella, there's a lot of people in that field at that time. So identifying what it is and who's there is very, very, very important. But you're right. When you talk about the 3.5 and the 3.6 gig space. So you talk about anything even up to 5 gig. You're talking about a radio wave that is anywhere from 2.5 inches to 5 inches wide, right? About that. So understanding that how what the relationship is with the land use and land clutter data is important because what you deal with in LULC is you deal with how small of an area you can hit. You don't need 5 centimeter data because your waveform's this big, right? You're okay. You're safe. You can go with 30 meter accuracy or whatever the 20 arc second or whatever. God, you're just, again PTSD. But
No,
that's I just want to explain that because I think that that's important for anyone who's never had to deal with that. There's a whole lot with what you just said, man.
yeah, yeah. And one thing, remember, we're at the WLPC, and there was one of the talks talking about site surveys, and they had this device for the site survey, and as they were putting it, like this or 45 or
Yeah.
90, it's about 5 to 7 dB difference
which,
between the.
which
You
is
see,
huge. Yeah.
and then if you think about 7 dB, and then when you go to the clutter data, if you have a tree, and then if it's 15 centimeter, 1 meter, that's not even going to be 1 dB difference in the propagation of the attenuation that you have. So that's something we need to have in mind, that how good is good that we need, and just get
Yeah.
that data. Otherwise, the simulation becomes so big that it takes forever to solve it.
Oh yeah. Well, and part of this, right, is that we're not just dealing with Wi-Fi, and that again, that's that goes back to the thing I said, a couple minutes ago, which is now you're talking about doing propagation assessment outdoor, where things like this are important. Whereas before, the reason the Wi-Fi world has never really bothered us is because that's a controlled environment. We know the floor, we know the ceiling. We can go take measurements, and even using lidar and all this stuff with the JISCO survey that Ekahau has, or using the little handheld lidar system, we can identify the indoor area. No biggie. But when you're talking about you're doing something outdoor. Now you have to understand what that outdoor physical environment looks like in order to understand the RF environment, so that those handoffs are done seamlessly between that Wi-Fi and CBRS. Man, okay. Well, that curveball number one. What else, man? This is awesome. And just for the record, I think I mentioned this when we did the interview at WLPC. Your background is not in RF, right? And your partner's background is not in RF. You guys have you guys did some incredible stuff before deciding to start the company. Tell me about that, because that's totally awesome and different.
Certainly, it's interesting. Me and JT, the co-founders, we both started when we were like 18 as an IT admin guy, doing LAN, Windows NT, and having dial-up internet shared between like 10 users. And then he went to studied physics, and he was an astrophysicist for many years. And I also studied physics, but more on the photonics side. So I was studying optical telecommunications, photonic integrated circuits,
Mm-hmm.
and we went two paths. And then we kind of both landed in the telco industry. He was at CenturyLink, and I was at OptiWave, which is a software for designing optical networks. And then we got to and we both have this research background in physics, and then at the same time, some background in the telecom and networking, and it was a very good match
That's
to
awesome.
working together.
That's awesome. So, okay, man, wow, my mind's blown on this. So much fun, man. Okay, so what's the next step? I mean, you mentioned that you were just at the OnGo Awards. I just covered the OnGo Awards in the podcast episode of Waves, talking about the new people that won it. We're seeing this huge. It was weird because you saw the convergence of private LTE and private 5G, and it became this thing. And now you're starting to see it split out a little bit. You're starting to see, well, we're doing private LTE or private, private, I don't even know what the all-encompassing name of it is, private networks, private carrier networks. We're seeing that in the carpeted spaces, in the uncarpeted spaces. We're seeing the vendor neutral stuff, or the carrier neutral stuff. We're seeing the stuff that has the Verizon, T-Mobile, and AT&T attached. We're seeing all the different things starting to branch out a little bit and carve out their own spaces. And you said you were doing some work there. What was the work that you all are doing in that space? How are you able to help that private LTE or private 5G space?
Yes. So the private cellular world, both LTE and 5G, has many new players, both on the vendor side and also system integrators. There are many smaller companies throughout the United States world that they want to build networks,
And
but
they all are the best, according to all of them. It's so it's crazy. It's like the Wild West here, because all of a sudden it was like you had one or two people that were doing it, and then Celona popped up its head and was like, "Hey, we're going to do this." And now it seems like in the last 6 months, you've got God, I can name five on one hand of people that are doing the orchestration and the cloud management services of these nodes. And it seems like I mentioned on the podcast, it seems like everybody's using bicells. Like everyone's using the same hardware. They're just like, no,
yeah.
no, no, no. Our special sauce is a little bit different. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt you, but if I'm deploying one of those networks, and I've got a featurette that I did on Ramen, I deployed Ramen here locally on top of a hotel a couple of days ago just for fun, glutton for punishment. But if I'm a small group, if I'm a school district, if I'm a police department, if I'm a municipality, if I'm a manufacturing facility, what benefit do you have to me other than just like a standard planning tool?
Yeah. So 10 years ago, if you wanted to plan any sort of cellular network, you were an operator, and you had
Hmm.
an army of very experienced engineers, solution architects.
Running
You had
EDX, yeah.
Yeah, you had very expensive tools that you paid tens of thousands of dollars per license,
Yeah,
and you were able to use it because you were planning for a city, and that model was working. But
yeah,
now you go to the private cellular, and there's a team of three people who want to build a network for a school district,
yeah.
and they cannot pay that money, and they cannot hire those very experienced people. So our tool does two things. One, fills the gap in expertise. So you don't need to have 20 years of experience of designing cellular networks to be able to use our tool. You could basically just get on and see a few tutorials and then design the network, and it works.
Hmm.
So
It's awesome.
that's one part that really helps out these smaller companies. They do, and also our business model is a bit different. We provide credits, and then based on the size of your project, you use those credits. So you could
Wow.
really expand based on, if I get one project a month, I could just do that. But then I start getting more and more projects, I could grow. And we have small limitations on the number of users. So if you have three people working on the same project, you don't need to buy three licenses. You just buy one credit for your project, and then everyone uses
How dare you take a common sense approach to licensing?
it.
All you're going to do is just piss off the incumbents in the industry. This is, that's awesome. It sounds like it's a really, especially with some of the AI components of it. And I don't want to use that term too loosely, but it sounds like with some of those components and some of the things you're talking about, this is really a good solution for people that are starting with a smaller network and then able to scale it. But from a scaling perspective, it doesn't sound like you have an issue there. I mean, I'll leave out the name of our friend who introduced me to you, but my friend who introduced me to you is not a small network operator. They are a very, very large network operator, and they did some really great stuff. Part of that also, so from a scale perspective, you're cool there, right? Like I don't, there's nothing
Yeah, I
you
think
can.
our tool is built actually to scale. The reality is that if you want to go build 100 networks a year, and if for each of those networks, your pre-sales work takes 5, 10 hours, and then your design takes 20, 30 hours, and then your verification takes under 20, 30 hours, that's a lot of
That's
time
a
and
lot of time. Yeah.
expensive engineering resources. But if your pre-sales activities takes 5 to 10 minutes and your design takes 20 minutes and your verification takes 20 minutes, then it's much easier to scale. And that's our goal, that how we could reduce this time and make sure if you're a solution architect with 20 years of experience, you don't spend all your time on clicking. You spend your
Yeah.
time to your expertise, because now they just sit with a computer and click, 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 and that's not the best use of their time.
That's awesome. Let me ask you, was it easier to make software for larger networks, or was it more difficult to make it for the bigger networks, or more difficult to make it for the smaller networks? It seems like you had to do a lot of tweaking and tuning in order to get it to be just for these smaller components.
Yeah, I mean, smaller networks are definitely easier. The bigger networks, it's the optimization between how fast you want to get the results and how accurate are the results. So
Okay.
that's the part that plays. And resources are not unlimited, so you cannot put the biggest AWS,
Well,
you
that was my
can.
next question. This is 100% cloud based. There's nothing on prem here that's used at all. But you need that processing power in order to do that at either side. It sounds like. So let me ask you, as we're getting close to wrapping up here, what a fun conversation, man. What a cool tool. God, there's so much. I mean, it's knowing you and knowing your story. I think that there's a lot that, I mean, we could talk about, the incubation stuff and what you were able to do and the ventures and how you got started and all that. But I really feel like people would get a kick out of using this tool. And so the best way for them to use it is to just visit your website. It's eno.ai, right? Is the website?
Yes.
EINO.ai. There's information on there, and I'm sure they can find you on LinkedIn. Let me ask you, what do you think? What's your favorite thing about the tool that you're like, this is like, is there a little thing about the tool that you have in there that you're like, this, I like this a lot, this is one of my favorite pieces of it?
Yeah, I mean, the technology altogether helps us to do things faster and easier. So that's kind of the same view on our tool. If I go and I have a big layout that I want to design a network, I don't want to go put my APs one by one and look at the heat maps. I just want to say, I want minimum 110 RSSI, design it for me.
Yeah.
And then 30 seconds it's designed for you. So that's the part that I really enjoy, that I don't need to do everything and check out. I could just define what is my criteria and the tool does it for me, and I see the results and I say yes or no, I need a modification. And we feel like that's something that people would really enjoy using, in as a use of the technology that we provide for them.
And I don't even have to be listening to hear the amount of skepticism in the audience of people that are saying, oh, you just click a button and it throws the APs out there. So what I would encourage them to do is reach out to you and get online and watch a demo of this, watch a tutorial of this. If you're really interested in the product, check it out and see what makes it different than some of the other tools that are out there. I hope this has been this. I've learned some, and I love that you guys are sharing this, and I love that you showed up to WLPC to support the community of wireless LAN professionals. I think it's fantastic. Yeah, man, this has been great. Is there anything else before we drop here? Is there anything else you want to talk about? Is there anything else you want to go over with what you guys do? I think we got a good feel for who you are and what you do. I mean, what does the future look like for you?
So one thing I'd like to mention, we would love feedback from the users. So if you hear this podcast and you'd like to try out and give us some feedback, definitely reach out. We would love that. And in terms of future, what we would like to do is how we could make the entire process of designing and validation and management of the network seamless, using these concept of AI assistant and recommendation, and create
Mm-hmm.
this knowledge base. Because you go design, you get the data, you compare, you find out what you did good, what you did not good, and how we could share that knowledge base to anyone who wants to design a network. For example, Wi-Fi 7 comes, few people do the design, we learn, and then if the next person wants to do that Wi-Fi 7 design, they could just use that knowledge base and recommendation and do it right from the get-go, so you don't need to make mistakes and then learn. And that's the role of the whole AI to learn from a few people and share it to everyone.
Yeah, and that's awesome. What a fun way to end it. Well, I really, Payman, I really appreciate your time, man. It's always good to catch up with you. I know it's been a few months since WLPC, but I am looking forward to seeing you. I'm looking forward to the success of your company and seeing the name everywhere. And we'll share all the contact details for everyone. But with that, we're gonna go ahead and wrap this interview. And thanks for listening to the Wireless Nerd Waves podcast. This will be premiering, and people get a chance to listen, find out a little bit more about what you're doing and how you're doing it. But I'm gonna go ahead and call it. Thanks for listening. We'll see you soon.